What is up, fellow starlings? Welcome to my Stargirl Season 2, Episode 6 recap, review, and breakdown. And what did I tell you? Well, not to try and overhype this episode, but I'm thinking and predicting, as of when I am recording this video, that you thought that that was a pretty badass ending. Because if you guys remember, I did a review for the first 5 or 6 episodes of Stargirl in a non-spoiler review before the season came out. And by far, I was trying to say that, yes, while there may be some slow burner aspects, it really does build up to quite an explosive episode. And I was referring to this episode. There was just so much action in this episode. And not only that, I'm kind of negating the other big thing. This episode propelled the season forward into what I think, I don't know this because I haven't seen episodes beyond this, but now that Eclipso is here, surely the pacing will just go even more the way fans have just kind of been desiring to see it. Not that I'm expecting fights like this each and every episode, but the stakes are even higher now with Eclipso, the little freaking hobgoblin, being out there. But enough of a premise, guys. Let's get into this little recap and breakdown and talk about the details, because there's quite a few theories I want to chuck in now, since I can actually theory craft, since I have no idea what's actually happening next episode. So go ahead and like this video. Big shout out to my patrons and channel members appearing on the screen. You guys really do help fuel the content that I create on this channel. And if you would like to maybe join, I do have a top pin comment in the comment section, which has links to my social media, Patreon page, and there's a little fat join button on the channel. But the episode picked up with just kind of the teaser, yeah, and I kind of felt bad for Yolanda because we had Isaac Bowen in there, basically bringing up the pictures of season 1, which is obviously kind of a horrible flashback for Yolanda to go through, but also this was kind of like a foreshadowing, because as we know, he's already in the new Injustice Unlimited team. This was then followed with Beth Chapel waiting, you know, outside her father's office. There was a little picture of Icicle. I like how Icicle is kind of still been like a little looming, you know, he's like the picture in the background that with the eyes just following you. All I'm trying to say is that his presence is kind of still felt in the show, and I think that will actually go more into that when Cameron Marquand steps into his heritage, which I'm still, as I was theorizing at the end of last episode, I'm guessing that his grandparents will reveal all to him at some point in the season. I mean, you'd have to think that. This was just like another microdose of the Beth story. Like, I feel like they just keep microdosing that, so to speak, throughout the episodes. But next up, we had Pat and Courtney volunteering, or that's at least what they said to Cameron, even though they kind of walked out straight after that, so they didn't volunteer to clean up. But regardless, this was kind of the aftermath of the last episode with the paint explosion, basically, and how Eclipso was making the teacher draw all of these symbolic things, like whether it's the Heart of Darkness itself, the Black Diamond, or even Diablo Island, whatever you want to pronounce that, which, you know, I really kind of hope, just off the top of my head, we get a flashback to Bruce Gordon finding the Black Diamond for the first time. Sometimes these shows do that. It might be one of those opening sequences of an episode for 2 minutes. I think that would be really cool to see, like, the first time Eclipso was discovered by Bruce Gordon. But I feel like this scene also served as, once again, another microdose aspect to Cameron Marquand's story, and how he just came in there, like, really kind of depleted of energy, and he's just like, why do bad things keep happening to good people in this town? And once again, Pat and Courtney, I think he can intuitively tell they're not being transparent about everything. They kind of just ghost out of there quite quickly when they learn that Cindy, you know, has the Black Diamond and whatnot. But as I was saying, back to Cameron Marquand, I think this is all just like a kettle. It's boiling slowly but surely, but it's really got to boil up until the boiling point when he realizes that Courtney, the girl he's kind of low-key falling in love with over a long period of time, was kind of inadvertently involved in his father's death. Now, as a result of this, obviously, Pat and Courtney, and I kind of like how they're both, you know, Pat is the kind of veto vote person of the new JSA. Like, he's the adult at the end of the day, so he usually gets to say. But in that moment in the hallway, they both saying the exact same thing. So, like, they're kind of both one half of the leader of the new JSA, which I think speaks true. So they were going to kind of rendezvous at the pit stop, but we then got a scene with Mike. Now, I have a few thoughts about this, because I feel like they definitely were subverting expectations initially, because we had Mike at Zeke's yard, and he runs into Cindy. Now, obviously, obviously we've all been thinking since the beginning that photo was him being introduced, or Cindy wanting him to be in the Injustice Unlimited team-up. And not only that, they definitely gave that across to you on screen, where Eclipso showed her the vision of the painting changing to the new Injustice Unlimited team-up there, and Mike was literally in that, for us to only learn, like, oh, no, you're just like your father, and he does nothing, so do you. So I felt bad for Mike there, but he was never actually a part of a grand plan for the Injustice Unlimited team. It was just more of the long-term plan that she knew at some point she was going to use Stargirl's brother as bait for when she finally got her revenge. But obviously before then, she did still have to get Isaac Bowen in the fold, Artemis Croc in the fold. Now at this moment, I thought it was quite good to remove Pat from the picture. Not that I don't think you could have, well, I suppose, I was about to say, what could he have done? But he has Stripe. So Artemis Croc and the Fiddler's son, Isaac Bowen, came in there and absolutely, yeah, this was quite brutal. Like, it really was. Pat took quite the beating that led him to get a concussion and in hospital, and it was a pretty serious one as well, and I'm not surprised with the amount of impacts that were made to his head. They also take the moment to destroy Stripe to ensure that it still can't be used. This can maybe even be used as an opportunity for Zeke and Pat and Mike maybe to make it even more powerful with some surprises in the future episodes. Now I do really like the Fiddler's son, like using the fiddle the way he has, but I will talk about the choreography, and I don't want to be a party pooper or anything because I really thought it was absolutely spectacular. But just to nitpick, I suppose you could say, it is kind of hard to believe. Like, I know you can learn the fiddle, trust me, and maybe he was working his goddamn ass off, but I still find it maybe a bit hard to believe the way he was kind of handling it and jumping to that fight at the end. He was very intricately, like, using it, like, as if I mean, surely it would take some mentorship to use it the way he was using it, so that was the only far-fetched aspect I have. I didn't feel far-fetched about Artemis Croc towards the end of the episode, and just the way she is, because she was literally trained by Sportsmaster and Tigress, and that's very believable. Artemis has been shown to have this ability since season 1, whereas it was a bit harder to believe Isaac Bowen with his kind of proficiency with the Fiddler's weapon, and that obviously being the fiddle itself, and the way he kind of just executed those shots felt like he had a lot more than a couple of weeks experience. Or wait, was it even a couple of weeks, considering when Cindy actually approached him to recruit? It felt a teeny bit more synthetic than organic, but it's not a massive issue. One way they could have fixed that, though, just to offer some constructive criticism there, is that maybe his father and mother helped teach him it when he was younger, maybe, but he stopped lessons, so it was easy for him to pick back up. But he literally said, was it the last episode, I can't play that thing, and Cindy was like, well, you will learn. So that's what I'm getting at. He could have been like, oh, I did have lessons my dad taught me when I was younger before he disappeared. That would have been a really good way to have, squashed the minuscule issue I have. This is where we get a nice little scene in the hospital. I mean, Pat's completely conked out cold. She feels bad for splitting up earlier at the high school from Pat, when they were going to meet at the pit stop. And, it just really contrasts the feeling she had towards Pat at the beginning of last season to how upset she is in this moment that, at the end of the day, he could have died. And he was going to, because the Fiddler's son was about to send another frickin' soundwave blast into him, but Artemis stopped him because she said he's my dad's friend. So it could have been much, much, much worse. And also, I like how Barbara is encouraging Courtney to kick ass in this moment. Now, I feel like some people might find this hard to believe in some sense, encouraging your daughter to go into a dangerous situation where, all I'm saying there is, imagine if she died. Imagine how awful Barbara would feel for encouraging the kid. It's just still quite a cool scene where she was just like, kick that girl's ass. I know this scene came a little bit after that because we also had the other JSA members looking at the damage at the pit stop and just seeing the destruction of the Stripe robot that was just everywhere. Bottom line here, Cindy calls Courtney, kind of threatening Mike and whatnot, and yeah, that leads up to the big battle, which lasted a long time, because I was looking at the point of the episode, and it was only, I think, like around 20 minutes in, and then the rest of the 20-something minutes was truly like the ISA versus the JSA, and that's spectacular, to be honest. I know there was obviously that bit at the end where it obviously stopped, but this fight went on way longer than they probably ever had to do it. And that's amazing, because they could have made this fight half the length and that would have still been very, very impressive. But they wanted episode 6's back half to kind of really come out of left field and just, you know, surprise you. And I feel like they succeeded at that. And once again, guys, as the pairing continues this season, we get another scene of Barbara with the Shade, which I really like because, as we can really tell by now, like, the Shade isn't outright evil. So I really am a big fan of Jonathan Cake, especially when he came in towards the end. But yeah, I really like the pairing with Barbara and the Shade. They kind of have some kind of rapport here, which we still aren't fully knowledgeable about, just because, you know, the Shade teased like, oh, you remind me of someone I used to know. I think, you know, he has a little bit of a soft spot for Barbara. Not in a romantic sense or anything. It's just, yeah, I like the dynamic, and she wanted him to help the kids because obviously she's petrified for her daughter in the new JSA, knowing what they're potentially going up against. And even you can tell in the Shade's face here that when he learns of Cindy Berman having the Black Diamond, yet again, the concern washes over his face, and I'm dying to know what his history is with the Black Diamond. There's something there that we don't know about, and we still don't know the secret that Pat told Barbara that they're keeping from the kids that involves the original JSA. And I'm really looking forward to that bombshell. I'm really trying to not overhype myself, so I'm trying to temper expectations, but that's really got me hyped up. I know I keep saying that, but it's this big secret, and I feel like the Shade's somehow involved in that as well. This next part was just really, really impressive. I don't, as I said, want to be a party pooper because it was really impressive, but there were just little bits, so I'm just going to start off with those. For example, they have hinted at Artemis Croc being very, very strong, but for all intents and purposes, I don't think she is a super or a meta-human. I know she's been trained. They have shown shots of her like throwing a football like way beyond like what is capable for a normal person, I would say. It felt like there was a propelled superhuman throw behind that, for example. But let me put it this way. When Hourman, who, when he has flipped that hourglass over, has super strength to withstand a freaking bomb and dent a car and do all of the things we've seen him do, go up against Solomon Grundy, is punching Artemis Croc, who is an absolutely, for all we know at the moment, ordinary girl, how does he not break her back and all of her bones? Do you know what I mean? And I don't want to go too hard into that. I just want to acknowledge, as wickedly awesome as this fight was, there were little things like that that just didn't make too much sense to me, because, like, fair enough, Hourman was getting his head smacked into, you know, the bathroom sinks and things like that, but there was a lot of damage going on to Artemis Croc as well, which, if you take into account as to how she isn't a metahuman or anything, it just didn't make sense as to how she didn't fracture every single bone in her body, considering who she was up against. So, call that a nitpick if you want, but technically it almost isn't, because at the end of the day, she's not a superhuman. So the only other things I will say is, like, obviously the Fiddler's Son, but I've already spoken about that, but I still found it awesome. I loved how each person kind of was going up against their own person. So, for example, Yolanda and Isaac Bowen, and Courtney, and we had, obviously, Shiv, but I liked how there were moments where they were helping each other out as well, in between. It truly spanned a long period of time, and I really enjoyed the cinematography, the camera moments. I do felt like sometimes there was some obvious wire work moments, but that is just a nitpick. For example, there was a moment where Artemis Croc, like, kind of did that move where she flips up from off the floor, but you could tell she was just being really pulled up. Just moments like that, but, like, I'm not gonna complain. Overall, it was such an accomplishment, and at the end of the day, one of the best, if not the best, DC TV fight I've seen in a long time. It was executed very, very well. There was one more thing, to be fair. I do really want them to give an arc to Beth where she isn't kind of so, and I know it is a part of the character, but where she isn't so like, oh, you know, like that. Because, for example, when the arrows went at her, was that Artemis who did that? I think it was, if my memory serves me right. Those 2 or 3 arrows, I think Rick saved her with. It's just like, that would have killed her. Like, in that moment, if he didn't do that, she would have just been standing like, oh, you know. So, other than that, like, I know she found Mike. She is using Charles McNider's technology for the purposes like, she was very useful there, but I just feel like if there are scenarios like this, they can't always watch after her when they're doing their own thing. So I just always argue that she could, if she isn't kind of trained to have a bit more confidence, which would be a really awesome character arc for her, I feel like she is seeming like a little bit of a spare part of the team. And I think that was just shown through those arrows that could have basically killed her, which would have been really messed up if you think about it. Like, Artemis would have literally murdered another kid, which is really dark to think about, but I guess, you know, this is the new JSA versus the ISA. But I think just what doesn't sit right with me properly is that I know she had that cool moment as well where she projected Artemis Croc's parents' mugshots in front of her, and that kind of immediately disorientated her, but that was still after those 3 arrows that would have completely impaled her and I guess killed her. So I'm sure a lot of people will kind of understand where I'm coming from, where we want Beth to be a little bit more, I don't know, I'm not expecting pure acrobatics, but she needs to be able to defend herself, and at the minute it doesn't feel like she properly can. And I hope that comes at some point this season where they give a bit more oomph to her instead of like, woo, you know. You get what I'm saying, and I really like Beth Chapel as a character, so I'm looking forward to see if they give that to her. But that new JSA lineup moment, where like they're all running in at the end and Mike ran in, that was awesome, and I'm very happy that Mike was included in that, because it really is symbolic that they are really putting him into the team. But this is it, guys. Since, you know, they're like a little bit of a stalemate here, Cindy pulls out the one little surprise weapon that she has, which isn't, I guess, a surprise since they know about it now, but that is Eclipso, and he takes over her. He says, it's time for me. She doesn't want this because this is what happened when she absorbed her stepmother, so she's like, no, 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 please, no. But a little freaking Eclipso spirit orb balls come out and just engulf her, and she then is taken over like the mini Bruce Gordon was of episode 1, and half her face is kind of evil, and yeah, this turns into a little bit of a standoff once again because the Shade appears, and I feel like he arrived with such swagger, his kind of 1800s Englishman swagger, if you will. Jonathan Cake, I can't sing his praises enough. He is just, this moment was epic. Initially, he's like, come now children, playtime's over. I think he feels like he has some kind of control in this situation, but I don't think he expected it to get as out of hand as it did, and that is when, you know, Eclipse, so obviously it kind of turned into this Harry Potter, you know, wand battle stalemate where you had the Shade Force, if you will, the Shadow Realm stuff going against Eclipso stuff, which, as we learned, his powers come from his homeland anyway, which is a really interesting way to tie it in, and also makes us clued into a little bit more as to how the Shade and what his baggage is with Eclipso, and obviously that pertains to his powers coming from the exact same place, and I can't wait to get into that. Yet again, they're setting up lots of cool little seeds here that is making my mind very, 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 very intrigued. I thought it was awesome with how Courtney like just flew in with the staff, but this, unfortunately, is exactly what Eclipso wanted, and it fractured the Black Diamond into a bunch of shards. And this is like somewhat accurate to the comics as well. The Heart of Darkness being the Black Diamond, you can also have the Shards of Darkness. So like that's technically like when Eclipso threw one of the shards, it absorbed Cindy. And I wonder if they're going to have to use these shards again to like contain Eclipso. But maybe that's a bit too nitty-gritty specific because, you know, those shards are on the floor. Like, if it was that easy, I don't know. But with his prison being exploded, so to speak, Eclipso is completely and utterly liberated to appear. And this is when his evil marks itself upon the world because there is a literal eclipse happening. People over town are noticing it. And, you know, the music is well and truly coming in the sinister vibes. And I think Nick Tarabay, seen him in The Expanse and a bunch of other shows. I loved his kind of movements, if you will. He was just, you know, it's like Eclipso, and you heard like they constantly added this bone crackling sound effect, as if like everything about him was just crackling into place, as if he'd been cramped in that little Heart of Darkness for that like hundreds of years. Well, not hundreds of years, but yeah, it's as if he was literally cramped in there like Harry Potter under the freaking stairs. A bunch of things happen in this moment. Cindy's just like, you used me, and like Eclipso was just like, well, you did, but I've also used you. He flings, oh no, that moment when he yanks Cindy's blade out, that made my wrist feel tingly, and I'm not a squeamish person, but I think it's just because we know where that blade comes out of, and that is literally her wrist. It's kind of intricately attached to her, so the fact that it was just yanked out, it feels weird. And the fact that he also just launched that into Isaac Bowen, yeah, like he killed Isaac Bowen, absorbed him. So goodbye, Fiddler's Son. I that kind of did subvert my expectations because I thought that the Injustice Unlimited team up was going to be quite a thing going forward. And we also had Artemis escape, and it doesn't mean that the Injustice Unlimited team won't return back again one day, but for now it's definitely put on the back burner, especially when Cindy was going into one of the shards of the Black Diamond, which, you know, I'm sure she's fine. I like how Courtney tried to save her, but at the same time, she is gone for now. As I said, I think she is, you could probably look at it like, you know where Dr. Charles McNider is? I am guessing you're put in a similar location, not the exact one, but you're trapped in a place akin to where Eclipso was trapped. And that's when the Shade says, "You're pathetic, feasting on the souls of children." He tries to do something, but that's when Eclipso was just like, "Your powers are from my home, human." And he kind of like, stabs the Shade with his fingernails, I suppose. So it's just like a little, imagine like multiple marks on your like rib cage. That would really hurt. I don't think it's life-threatening, but it was a way to kind of put him down. So once again, I do feel like we must get some kind of flashback or something to the Shade's origin in this iteration to link his own power origin to that of Eclipso. Maybe him drawing his powers from the Shadowlands, if you will, or what I like to call the frickin' Shade Force. In this iteration, they might do some innovative adaptation where it truly is linked to Diablo Island or something, and I feel like they might do that because they definitely made a moment of this in that dialogue between Eclipso and the Shade where it's like, "Your powers are from my homeland," or whatever. So that definitely put the Shade in his place and was like, "Oh, damnation." And he just was like Shade teleporting into different places and whatnot. I think this is obviously precisely what he wanted to avoid, and also I think now we're going to see the new JSA literally work with the Shade, because I feel like everyone has to work together to stop Eclipso now, because he is borderline an apocalyptic level threat. Also, really interesting in how he completely dismantled the Cosmic Staff. It seems as though the Cosmic Staff has been made completely redundant now, because its glow is really gone. And as Courtney said in the room at the hospital at the end, you know, there's something wrong with it. This does make me wonder if we are somehow, some way going to see Ted Knight, the original Starman, because don't forget in season 1, Pat did say, "Oh, well, before Sylvester Pemberton, like, he didn't make the staff, that was Ted Knight." And before Courtney could ask more about it, he quickly changed the subject about who and where and what and why this, as to who this Ted Knight is. So does that mean the one way they can fix the Cosmic Staff is to find its creator? Maybe he's an old wrinkly man by now. Who knows? But I feel like they're going to have to learn more about the staff and able to fix it. But if they don't want to go into Ted Knight territory, well, who is left? And who's a little plot that has been cooking along very, very slowly in the background of these 6 episodes? Sylvester Pemberton. So maybe he has a bit of knowledge as to how you can restore the staff's energy in this iteration. And I feel like that's going to be really awesome lore to get into that we just haven't dived too much in, other than that Ted Knight comment in season 1. But I have to admit, guys, and look, the thing is, I don't have a counter to this, because it's like, well, what do you expect, Boba? But like, when he ran away, he was arguably overpowered at that point. He disabled Courtney's staff, so that was arguably the one weapon that could have stopped him. Why run away like freaking Gollum when you could have killed everyone? Now, I don't have an issue, because obviously I know that would have just ended the whole show if everyone just died there and then. I'm just saying it could have maybe been written better, or just something. Maybe the Shade could have done something to like shadow teleport him away, but it teleported them both away. All I'm saying there is it just doesn't make sense. If you're at the height of your power, you just absorbed a kid that made you even more powerful. You just backhanded Rick, you just disabled the Cosmic Staff. Why goblin crawl away? It doesn't make too much sense, does it? So it felt contrived there, just to be critical. I don't really care at the end of the day in terms of, like, I still really enjoyed it, but I'm not gonna, hold back criticisms where they can be made. So I do feel like they could have made his reason for going somewhere better, but I'm sure some people will say maybe he wanted to fester and enjoy and long out the battle between the JSA and himself, but that wasn't really, that I don't feel like that's a good enough reason, because it wasn't shown. So yeah, that's my only criticism with his exit, but I do love the exit because I thought it was absolutely well done at the very, very ending of the episode. That kid, by the way, is brilliant, because his little, like, snarking laugh at the end, the miniature Bruce Gordon, it was just so well done. It was really creepy. But yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, Mike said I need to step up my training. No more rebuilding clock radios. Cindy Berman was going to kill me and I couldn't do anything. It's like, we'll rebuild Stripe together, but no, he was like, no, I want my own Stripe, Dad. This thing, it's like out of a nightmare and I'm scared. So we are getting Mike in some kind of mantle, of course. Will he actually get his own miniature robot? That would be interesting. But evidently, Mike is going to be much more in the fold now, and he kind of has to have something to defend himself with. I think that wraps up episode 6. So I thought it was a spectacular episode, by far the best overall episode of Stargirl Season 2 so far. I'm just looking forward to where things go from here on out, because I don't really need to state it. Eclipso's out there, the cosmic staff is depowered, probably Sylvester's going to come in and help with that. Mike's getting a bit more of a heroic arc. It's going to go crazy from here on out. We still got Cameron Marquand going into High School Junior. There's a lot of dominoes now starting to tip over, I think, into where a lot of fans wanted it to be, maybe just a little bit earlier on. But another desire of mine is, give us more Green Lantern, please. Is she going to come back? Is she going to help out? She's been benched for a while now, so I really want Jenny to come back into the fold. I don't know how exactly she is, because she's just going out there looking for a brother, but we need more Green Lantern. I want that back in the show. But yeah, guys, I'm going to stop speaking now. So let me know your thoughts. As always, like this video if you did enjoy it. Make sure you are subscribed for more Stargirl breakdowns just like this. As always, check out the top pinned comment for the links to my Discord server, my Twitter, and other places you can connect with me a little bit more. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you starlings in the next video. Goodbye.